That brings us to an idea of just about comedy in Australia and stand-up. Because I've always had the sort of peripheral idea of what comedy was in here, or stand-up in Australia, as just being pretty minimal, like pretty hard. If you were trying to do that professionally, it seemed like you needed to go to the UK or America. Especially the UK, it seems like you can just work continuously there. But in Australia, it's like, where do you go to do that, or where would you go to see stand-up?
Where do we go to see stand-up, Dave?
Interesting question. So, and something I'm really,
So I thought that was a softball. I was waiting for you to plug your cap, but.
Sit Down Comedy Club. Go to the Sit Down Comedy Club in Brisbane. If you're ever in Brisbane, go to Sit Down. And also, or Good Chat is another place in Brisbane. Based comedy on the Gold Coast, if anybody's on the Goldie. But there's comedy clubs.
How many would you say there actually is in Australia?
In Sydney, Comics Lounge in Melbourne. They're probably, and then the Comedy Lounge in WA, I think it's called. I don't know what's going on in Adelaide at the moment. Rhino Room in Adelaide, I think, is still doing it. But it's comedy clubs. But then you have the comedy rooms. So that's where it's like, it's usually an open micer who wants more stage time and wants to get to know cool comics and sells a comedy night to a venue, and they put a little stage in the corner of the pub, and it's maybe they charge $5 entry, or it's free entry, or whatever it is, and so they're rooms, and that's where you get open micers trying stuff. They're learning their trade, and you get seasoned comics coming in trying new stuff. And what I guess the road in Australia, you're right about the UK and America, but before you get to the UK and America, you've kind of got to do the festivals in Australia. And a lot of people have a weird idea about festivals, because people think festivals are like comedy festivals, like music festivals, where the bands are booked and they're listed and it's a festival. But comedy festivals in Australia are they're trade show events. So basically you register yourself as an individual comedian at the festival. You pay $600, $650, whatever the going rate is. These days, it's been a while since I've done them. I stopped doing them. It's a nightmare. It's a mental health nightmare. So it runs for a month. The Melbourne Comedy Festival runs for a month. And what you see on TV at the Melbourne Festival Gala and the Up Late and all this sort of stuff they put on, that's just a tiny slice of that's the teaser. That's the flyer to come to the Melbourne Comedy Festival. But the Comedy Festival runs for a month, and there's I think it's like 500 comics in Melbourne each year. Everybody's got a show. So as an individual comic, you've got to pay to A, register, B, advertise in their guide, C, you've got to so you pay to register and you get a blurb in the guide, and you get your picture in the guide. But to advertise in the guide is ridiculously expensive. So only the best comedians get their poster advertised. And usually it's a quarter page for these big names. They get, like, Kitty Flanagan gets a quarter page, so so then you've got to hire the venue. So if you are Kitty Flanagan or Akmal or Dave Hughes or whatever, like, you're getting the biggest venues and you're probably only doing a couple of nights. If you're if you're down in the hierarchy, you book, like, say, 100-seat room for the month, and you book, like, you usually do 1 day off a week. In Edinburgh, you get 1 day off in the month. So in Edinburgh, it's fucking 29 days
Holy shit.
Every single. So Edinburgh is the big macro one.
Yeah.
Like, man, Edinburgh, because Edinburgh isn't just a comedy festival. Edinburgh is a fringe festival. It's an arts festival. So you're competing with dance, music, cabaret, theatre, fucking Hamlet in the style of Star Wars, Star Wars in the style of Hamlet. You're dealing with every conceivable concept.
A friend of mine did the
comic in the UK.
Empire Strips Back at Edinburgh. Like they took the burlesque show. Yeah.
Exactly. But a Star Wars themed burlesque show. There's Star Wars in a minute. There's Shakespeare and oh my God, it's crazy. So, plus every stand-up comedian in the UK, they all, like every comedian in Australia goes to Melbourne, and like we're talking 500, comedians in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
100 of them are any good and get regular work around the country. The rest of them are just crazies and open micers that are peaking way too soon and just wasting their money and their time and destroying their dreams. Good luck to you guys. But anyway, I try to tell them. I always warn them at open mics. I always say, hold off. And they go, yeah, but next time I'm going down, my friend and I are going to do a double show. It's like, well, fucking good on you, man. But you don't know the craft yet. Yeah. You're fucking shit.
Well, then where would you do that then? So like you're saying before, where would that place be? Because, again, all my experience of it is listening to podcasts and comedy, like I'm a fan, and you hear of it in the States and all these places they're going to and the rooms they're going to, and they are
that's a completely different beast.
Yeah.
That I don't really know as much, but I know in the UK.
So where do you practice in Australia then?
Because that's when you were sounding off all the comedy clubs. I think you got to maybe 12. So if you say that there's 20 comedy clubs in Australia, there'd be 20 in New York. There's
in New York. No, in New York there's probably 5.
Oh, really?
Dedicated. That I know of, like dedicated comedy clubs.
Yeah. Okay.
Are rare.
Mm.
So even in New York and LA, there's only in LA there's. And look, I don't know. I haven't been to LA in a long time, but there's There's Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory. Is it Laugh Factory?
Yeah. I guess we're getting stuck in the weeds of like, what's a comedy club? What's another venue? It's more the fact of like, where can you?
So in England and in Australia to a certain degree, it's pubs. Pubs put on a comedy night, like they put on a trivia night or a karaoke night.
Yeah.
And so that's the most common place to find comedy is in pubs, RSLs.
Yeah.
RSLs particularly because they have to put on entertainment for free.
Yeah.
So
otherwise the poker machines get taken away from them.
So they have comedy nights.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually a comedy night in a comedy room. So that's a room.
How does that feel?
A dedicated club. You know what I mean?
Like,
but just to finish off on the comedy festival thing.
Yeah.
So you hire your room, but you hire your light, sound person, light person, venue, flyers, posters, and then you've got to stand on the street and hand out your flyers to people walking by. It is a punish.
Jesus.
It is brutal. And in Edinburgh, as I say, it's that. So in Edinburgh, I did 2 years in Edinburgh. I lost 20 grand.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so you wouldn't say it was worth it.
I had a 60-seat venue, and one night there was 3 people.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, right.
I had 60 people a couple of nights over the month, but it was mainly 20 people in a 60-seat room, which isn't too bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you say you lost 20 grand.
And I heard.
So I was just going to say.
What's that?
So you said you lost 20 grand, but did you ever sort of recoup that in post events and exposure? Like it just wasn't worth it at all? No.
Yeah.
No, I always say this, that I went to, I'd heard all the horror stories. And I remember hearing about Lano and Woodley, who won Best Act at the Edinburgh Comedy Festival. They won Best Comedy Act. One of 2 Australian acts to ever have won Best Comedy Act at the Edinburgh Festival. Massive award. They were doing shows to 9 people. Apparently, that's the average audience in Edinburgh is 9.
So I was saying, when you got like 500 acts that everyone's trying to get along and see, then you're talking small audience.
And you've got to do an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an hour in front of 9 people.
Jesus.
And so I knew that going in. So what the way I kind of frame it is that it was a dream come true. And this is honest to God. I loved every fucking second of that experience. I didn't, not every second, but but I did.
Yeah.
Even the moments that I fucking hated and that sucked, I loved it because it was a dream come true to go to Edinburgh and crush my dreams.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, you have to get it. Like
it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah. Failing is not the worst thing in the world. It's not doing it and regret. Like regret is the worst thing that you can experience. It's not failure.
I was going to say, because that would have made you fearless to come into, to play rooms at a club that's sort of bumping in Sydney. Like, throw a joke out and it falls flat. It's like, it's I've been through way worse than this. Bring it.
Yeah.
But have you seen the Tim Minchin documentary? Have you ever seen that one? The one where and I slight digression, but because I came from drama school before I went into being a stunty. There's a constant thing that happens with my mum where she sort of goes like, "Oh, so what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm getting thrown over a chair, or I'm some of that." She's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doubling this particular actor." And she's like, "Why aren't you playing the role? Like, why don't they get you to do the lines and someone else can go over the chair?" And I'm like, "Well, because I'm not that guy." The only person that has never happened with was when I was doubling Tim Minchin, where it was just like, "What are you doing for Tim today?" And I'm like, "Oh, probably nothing." Because I think my mum's idea of Tim Minchin is everything she wanted me to be and that I never became. I was playing piano from age 5, so the way he plays the piano, the comedy, what would
the
you call
hairstyle,
it?
it's all you.
Well, to me, it's the thing of, they say a scientist says something simple in a complicated way, an artist says something complicated in a simple way. And Tim seems to have that down pat, where he can just condense an entire idea into a single moment. And working alongside him was that same thing of, you'd see him making choices and processing things, and even just things like, he was lovely enough one night to invite me over to his table, and I sat there and had dinner with him and his wife and his kids, and just even him interacting with his own family was full of those little moments. And I think that's one of the things that I think that documentary is also kind of, from what you're talking about, is kind of wickedly dangerous, because you get to see the genius that is Tim Minchin back when he was basically a uni student trying to work out what he was going to do, and, failing to get people along to his gigs and struggling to work out whether he should go to Edinburgh or whether he should stay home and whether he was going to get into Edinburgh. And, and I think the reason why I say that's kind of dangerous is it must have made so many people that were like, "Oh, I should give this a go." Like if it was a struggle for Tim Minchin, then the fact that I'm struggling, that's fine. Like I'll go there and struggle. And it's like, yeah, but you're not Tim.
I saw the Tim Minchin documentary before and over, and there's a woman in it who discovers him basically.
Yeah.
So he's playing in a venue called the Gilded Balloon, which is the University of Edinburgh. It's one of their buildings, and within this building, there's I don't know how many rooms. There's all these different sized rooms within the building lecture halls that are turned into massive rooms and little study rooms that are also converted into like 30-seat kind of room venues. There's a woman in that documentary who comes in and says to Tim, she's this blonde woman, her name's Karen Corrin, and she's one of the biggest names at Edinburgh because she runs the whole fucking building, and it's one of 4 major comedy venues at the festival. Anyway, so I'm going there for the first time. Long story, but I'm going there for the first time. I've paid all this money to be there, and I'm paying in installments, and I still owe £200 max, maybe £100, and I've got it in my pocket. This is like 2011 when cash was still a thing, and I've gone to a ATM. I've got £200 out, and I'm walking up to the office, and it's the launch day. So the festival hasn't started, but they've just done the media launch. And I've got the money in my pocket, and I'm walking to the office because I've driven up from London, and I've done all these gigs up along the way. And I got booed off the stage in Birmingham on the way, by the way. Just one of the worst gigs ever. Left the stage in tears. Just awful. Yeah. Worst gig ever. Anyway, so I finally get to Edinburgh. It's my first day in Edinburgh. And I walk up onto the steps. And I had met her the year before because I'd been a support act for this big act. And so I walk up, and there's Karen Corrin. She's doing a press conference. She's done the press conference, and she's shaking hands with journalists and saying goodbye to everybody. I walk up. I've got the money in my pocket. She goes, "You owe me a lot of money." And I was just mortified. Like, I couldn't fucking believe. Karen Corrin, this woman who's in the Tim Minchin documentary, she's like, "Oh, Tim, you're so amazing. Oh, look at this. Oh, it's so wonderful." And she points me out in front of everybody, and I had the fucking money in my pocket. And I was like, "You fuck," and they didn't promote me. They didn't put me on their fucking galas. They didn't I paid so much fucking money. And another story about this. Sorry to harp on, but
no.
God, Tim mentioned brought all this fucking shit back. I paid a public. So the year before, I'd done the support act for this big guy in a massive 400-seat room. Brendan Burns, the only other Australian to win the comedy award in Edinburgh. He was Jim Jeffries before Jim Jeffries was Jim Jeffries. Like, he's the prototype of Jim Jeffries. Anyway, so I'd met all these people, and this publicist took me on. She said, I don't take on newbies, but I'll take you on. And you pay me £800 at the start, £800 at the start of the festival, which is 1,600 Australian basically, plus 800 at the end. She didn't come to my show once, not fucking once, not once, not one time did she come to my show, not once. And she's my publicist, and I'm paying her fucking $3,000. And I just went, and at the end she's like, "You owe me £800," and I went, I'm not paying you the $800. You need to come to my show. Yeah. She's gone, "Your name is mud here. You'll never work here again." And I was like, I can't afford to ever come back there ever again because I paid you fucking $1,500 and you didn't even come to my fucking show.
Yeah, could you make it mud for me so that way I will get some exposure? That'd be great.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, fuck, man. And, everybody hears about artists getting paid in exposure. I paid for the exposure and didn't get shit.
Yeah.
I didn't get shit. And so it's just vultures and fucking the rent you pay. Like, I'm staying in a travel lodge at the moment in North Ryde because I'm filming a TV show for ABC Comedy. Predators with Nakia Louie. Don't want to. Also did a gig at Frankie's last night. Anyway, what else does he do? What doesn't he do? But Like, I swear to God, man, I paid like 2.5 grand in pounds for the month for this shitty 2-bedroom apartment that I shared with my girlfriend at the time and another comic. And I think it was 2.8 in pounds.
Yeah.
In pounds. And the fucking towel rack was gaffer taped to the wall.
Yeah.
Gaffer taped. With silver gaffer tape. It wasn't even white gaffer tape to try and blend in.
Oh, you're lucky you had a gaffer taped up.
Yeah.
God.
Luxury.
So my brother is a major.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is a major. My uncle was a major. My grandfather was a major.
Yeah.
My great grandfather wasn't a major, but he was in the army. He was a light horse. And
there's no lieutenant colonels. They're all that got to the major
they
and
all
went
stopped at
done.
major. Yeah, they all stopped at major. Yeah. So there's my brother is the 4th generation of majors in my family.
Wow.
And I'm a major. Disappointed. That's the gag I use in my stand-up. But for real, my brother is 4th generation major in the army, and Dad was a UN peacekeeper.
Did he do Rwanda?
No, but my brother did Sudan.
Yeah, right.
So my dad did Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Egypt. And he was based out of Jerusalem and Damascus with my mother and my brother with him as my brother was a baby.
Yeah.
So they were in married quarters in Jerusalem and Damascus.
Ultimate luxury.
But he also did Lebanon and Egypt. And my brother, and then that's why we went to PNG, was because Dad was in the army in PNG, and he was there when Bougainville broke out.
Holy shit.
We were there when Bougainville broke out. So I've seen my dad go to war. You know, I grew up in a third world country. I was conceived when they were in the Middle East, and I wasn't born. I was born when I got back home, but I grew up with stories about the Middle East. And dad, my uncle, oh fuck, man. You got me. My uncle, man. So my uncle John, who delivered me when for whatever reason, my uncle John was at home looking after my brother while my dad was at work. And they were out not Holsworthy, but we were living in Moorebank at the time.
Yeah, okay.
And so Moorebank is on my passport as my place of birth. Most people have like Brisbane or Gold Coast or fucking St. George Hospital or whatever. Yeah. I'm like Moorebank.
Can we just
born at home?
There's a slight little sidetrack, but Mick Fanning, one of Australia's best World Championship surfers ever. I used to love this. Whenever they'd actually show where he was from. Yeah, Mick Fanning. He was born in Penrith.
Yeah.
So that would, I used to love that whenever they were doing the world tour and they'd actually show where each of them were born and it'd show up Mick Fanning, Penrith.
Yeah.
So you keep in good stead, man.
I'm doing an ad with Mick Fanning in a couple of weeks.
Really?
I did a gig with Mick Fanning years ago, and he's a Gold Coast boy.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised because I was like, why don't you? We did a gig for the
Cool and crew
together, and he's a Penrith fan. I'm like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, he's the best surfer in the world. He's fucking Penrith. Yeah. Anyway,
so your uncle, when you were delivered, yep.
So my uncle who delivered me, he was also a UN peacekeeper. And the two of them, my dad and my uncle, they gave the Nobel Peace Prize in 1988 to all the UN peacekeepers that had served from 48 to 88.
Yeah, wow.
To celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the UN peacekeepers. So 200,000 people were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize that year. But Dad and my uncle both have the medal and the certificate to say that they have a Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
Fucking massive, right?
Yeah.
And the joke that I make in my stand-up is that for a guy with a Nobel Peace Prize, he didn't have any qualms beating the fuck out of an 8-year-old with a cricket bat for swinging on a clothesline.
Yeah.
However, that aside, his Uncle John, the PTSD got the better of him, and he passed. Yeah. But being surrounded by soldiers growing up, I think, so back to your point about acting is empathy. And you've got to have empathy to be an actor and to be a comedian. You've got to be an observer. Mate, I don't know where you went to acting school, but where did you go to acting school?
I went to NIDA.
Wow.
So I was in Jess Murray, Hugh Sheridan. Actually, well, probably the best known person from in my year is Eamon Farron, who just finished playing the lead villain in the that's actually was a really great like sorcery Middle Ages show that I can't remember the name of on Netflix.
Like Vikings. That one.
It's not Vikings. It's not Game of Thrones, but it's that realm, and he plays the villain in it and plays it brilliantly. So yeah.
There's some stuff I need to talk to you off the podcast. No, let's just keep it. Keep it real. But so I didn't get into NIDA. I didn't get into QT.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to all those schools.
Yeah.
I tried. I couldn't get into them. And I went to Dream On. I fucking did stand up, and that was my path to get to Doctor was the round. I had to go around. I had to do the fucking journey to get around there. You know, I did go to NIDA winter school 1994. It was a 2-week course. I got a certificate of participation, but other than that, I wanted to be an actor since I was fucking like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a musician, and I wanted to be a comedian. And for me, they were all one thing. It was all, I just wanted to entertain people. And you could also frame that as I just wanted attention because my brother's a fucking army major. At that time he wasn't, obviously, but my dad's an army major, and he's got no interest in, it's not his fault. Whatever. I love my dad, but he was a hard man. You know, he's a hard fucking man with PTSD. He'd been nearly killed and blown up in fucking car bombs in Syria that were set off by, in Syria, the reason why they were peacekeeping in Syria was it was the Ba'athist regime in Iraq versus the Ba'athist regime in Syria. And the two Ba'athist parties hated each other. So Saddam Hussein set off a car bomb, or the Iraqi Ba'ath party set off a car bomb in Damascus, nearly killed my dad, which is why I supported the 2003 Iraq war, because Saddam also tried to kill my dad.
Yeah. It was personal.
George W. Man, George W. Sorry. I shouldn't do bits. I shouldn't do bits for my comedy. That's a bit that never goes well, by the way, but I thought you'd appreciate
I love it.
Anyway, but yeah, you know, he had PTSD and he still suffers from that. And but growing up around soldiers and in the army, you're moving all the time, and so you're constantly fucking going from, so it was Sydney to Melbourne to Point Lonsdale when he was at Queenscliff, and then it was to Canungra, and then it was to PNG, then it was back to Canungra, and then And then he quit the army because he cracked the shits with it. And so then we lived on the Gold Coast, but I went to a private boys' school on the Gold Coast, but I'd grown up in a third world country. So it was like, I don't know, I've just seen a lot of shit, and speaking a second language as a kid helped me learn a second language when I went to Japan. A third language, sorry, when I went to Japan. I also, my guitar player is Arabic, so I'm learning Arabic at the moment. and I don't know, I think all of that whole journey, I don't know, it is. It's a rich, like, I don't want to sound like a wanker, but there is a rich tapestry to my life. I didn't just stay in one town my whole life and fucking, whatever. Like, not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm not disparaging anybody for their journeys, but I had a really fucking interesting journey, and I also had a clear goal from a very young age that this is what I want to do. I want to entertain people. And if it's being a musician, if it's being a singer, an actor, dancing in a Kenny Koala fucking suit, you want me to jump off a roof? I'll fucking jump off a roof. If I get applause, fuck yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? And that's why I had no qualms about going back to Movie World to do stunts last year during COVID. It was like, fuck, man, I got nothing else to do, because I was living back with my parents on the Gold Coast. And I was like, fuck, man, like, a lot of people were like, oh God, that's good. And I actually copped a bit of online shit. I think it was from my ex-girlfriend, but a fucking fake account. Anyway, you're battling with your parents, you're working at a theme park now. It's like, yeah, man, couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
I've spent the last 25 years I've spent my entire, since the age of 16 when I walked into Dreamworld, I've never had another job that wasn't entertainment. Of some form. That is,
I had presumed that. Like when, like I say, when I saw you performing at Ryan's birthday, I looked at you and I was like, he is so authentically being himself right now. This isn't a part-time job. Like, this isn't something that's why I was so interested in getting you on here, talking about the Journeyman, is that you just reeked of someone who'd shown up every day to do the work, to chip away. And I'd hazard a guess that you probably tried just as hard, or probably harder, when you had 6 people in the audience than you do when there's, the entire room at Frankie's packed to the ceiling. Like, it's...
I did a comedy. I did my 1-hour comedy special live at the Enmore Theatre in front of 1,000 people. It was aired on ABC TV and Channel 11. And I swear to God, man, it doesn't matter. I put the same energy, because at Movie World, I do the warm-up before the stunt show now. And I go out there dressed as this sheriff's deputy, like a Duke of Hazzard kind of character. And I do the crowd warm, and it's the same, it's the same joy that I get at Movie World doing Austin Powers 20 years ago as I did in front of 5 people. As I said, it was a dream come true to go to Edinburgh to perform for 3 people. That was a fucking tick that box. I've done, it's like a gym, it's like, you're working like anything I can do in entertainment, and every different thing that I get to do is just, it is a fucking joy. And I tell you what, I do want to do this podcast again, and I want to do it all about all of the fuck ups and failures and bridges that I've burned and mistakes I've made in this business, because my ego got ahead of where I was at, You're only as good as your last gig. And when your next gig is really shit, but your ego is still back at that other gig, you can really fuck yourself. And there's a lot that we can expand on there. But back to your original question about the acting, like, I think it's really important as an actor that you try and experience as much as you can, and that you try and take in that. I remember learning that Steve. Have you heard of the actor Steve Rogers? He was my NIDA winter school instructor, and he's a character actor in Australia that you probably would recognise.
Yeah, sure.
On your IMDbing him, aren't you, right now?
Yeah, I'm just
being a bad boy
bring
and
up the
picking up his
phone
phone at the
really
same time.
quickly because I knew this was going to happen. As soon as I typed in Steve Rogers, I'm just getting Captain America.
Yeah.
Do
Unfortunately.
it later and superimpose it on your on your thing.
Yeah, it'll definitely be up there. I'm just trying to work out who it is.
But he's again like a journeyman actor. Like
I know. He did Men's Group. He did the Men's Group back in the day, and he played that beautiful character that ends up suiciding under. I think it's his the house he was born in. Just fucking heartbreaking.
So he drilled it into me, and I remember, and just even in speech and drama at school, your job as an actor is to be an observer.
Mm-hmm.
Your job as an actor is to be an observer. You've got to love people watching, and you've got to observe life. And that means observing life with a very neutral lens. You've got to take in people's opinions, unpopular opinions, and you've got to find a way to empathize with that unpopular opinion and see where they're coming from. You've got to see where the Palestinians are coming from, and you've got to see where the Israelis are coming from. You don't have to find a solution, but you've got to empathize with both of their plights. You've got to empathize with both of their situations and their perspectives. And I don't know, I don't know how I developed that skill, but I think that's, if I've got a talent, that's my talent, is to observe and empathize, and then, and then convert that into a performance.
Yeah.
But without that, absorption of the world and of different perspectives, then that's.
Has there been any plans to sort of enact some boycott or some sort of groundswell or movement to get attention about the situation?
I've resolved, and I've gotten the band involved. We've resolved to keep doing live hard rock, heavy metal karaoke, even when the metro station opens.
Good.
Nice.
We will do it there. It's happening there. I don't know how it's going to, but we are going to do live karaoke in the metro station. It's going to make commuting a whole new thing.
You get back to your Broncos match, Dave.
Hey, I will.
Do you want to plug anything? We've plugged a fair bit, but this is your chance now to sort of mention anything else. This is coming out, give you warning, probably about 6 weeks from now, because we've got a backlog now of eps that we've recorded. So have that in mind.
My band, Boner Contention, we are Dave Eastgate and Boner Contention, and we're on Instagram and Facebook. My YouTube channel is Dave Eastgate. It's got all of my singles and some stand-up and sketches and stuff that I've done. And yeah, follow me on Instagram, MySpace. I've got an OnlyFans where I watch. My OnlyFans is I watch you wank. and you pay me. But yeah, so
I think Twitch has been getting a bit spicy now. They've been supposedly hot tubbing. They've made a new category of hot tubs and the beach because people have been doing that. They've been sitting in a bit more provocative.
Notes on the phone, Twitch.
Yeah.
You can also find me on the Twitch hot tub.
Your parents will be all right.
At Eastgate on Instagram and at Boner Contention on Instagram. And the album is on. We have an originals album, and we've got some singles as well on iTunes and Spotify. It's under my name, Dave Eastgate. So check it out. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity, guys. Really appreciate it.
Dave, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.